My pleasure to introduce you guys to Booster.
All right, thank you for coming. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I graduated from Delaware with my bachelor's in '82 and received my MBA in '84. Back then the MBA program was very tiny. All the classes were at night. They didn't have any full-time students except for someone like me who was crazy enough to work during the day and then go full-time at night just to get it over with. The program's come a long way. From there I went to work for Johnson & Johnson in North New Jersey for Ethicon, a great company to work for, and then came to Delaware and ended up working for Harvey & Harvey, which is a local privately owned trash company, which turned out to be a good turning point for me. And from there I went and started my own trash company called Independent Disposal. I've since sold that, and we also have gotten into real estate and restaurant business. We own Klondike Kate's, my partner and I, in Newark. We also own Kid Shalene's in Wilmington, which we sold a couple of years ago. And now we also are building Kate's Place next to Kate's, the townhomes on Choate Street. And we have a car wash that's hopefully going to open Monday on Kirkwood Highway as you leave town, go past the Outback Steakhouse. There was an old Pizza Hut there. We bought that and tore it down, and it's called Blue Hen Car Wash, and it should open on Monday. So I like to do different things, and I enjoy it. It's a real pleasure to work for yourself, very rewarding. I want to start with, odds are, times are changing. To graduate from college with good grades from a good school, that's the expectation nowadays. You're not setting yourself apart from anybody by doing that. That is the norm, and if you don't do that, you're going to set yourself one step behind from everybody. But if you want to pursue being an entrepreneur, that's a good way to differentiate yourself from the crowd. And I'm not saying you don't go work for another company right away, but the logic is you use that mindset when you're working for someone else. So when you leave college and you said, okay, I need to get a job, and I knew that, and all your friends right now are, how many of your seniors and your friends are talking to Citibank, Barclays, Chase, Bank of America, all the big ones that are on campus interviewing all the business students, and it's great. You get a good job with a great company and good benefits. Go there and learn what not to do. Okay, it's corporate America. Corporate America, they have to report to the shareholders, and that is brutal. It is absolutely ugly, and it creates very poor decision making. But it's what they've chosen to do. So when you go there, you can learn so much. Say, I would never do this if I had my own company. So the good news is they're paying you to learn, which is nice. That's the way to look at it. Instead of you paying the school, Delaware, all the tuition money, you're working for someone else. You can really take advantage of that. So you want to differentiate yourself from the pack. And again, another concept for those of you who are getting involved in entrepreneur thinking is that it's not as hard as people say it is. It really isn't. There's plenty of money out there to start a business. If you're a good person and have a good product, you can get money. Now, banks are a nightmare to deal with, okay? Ever since the crash in '08, it is amazing what you have to go through now to get money. And I mean, even if you have collateral of 100% of what you want to borrow, it is still very hard. But there's a lot of personal money out there, and not just with venture capital groups and angels. I mean, there are a lot of people out there that have money that are willing to invest it. You just have to get into that network and find those people. And like large corporations right now are sitting on a ton of cash, just like a lot of individuals are. The market has come back, their investments have come back, they've got all this money, so you just need to work your way through that. That's how I started. I've been on the board of Big Brothers Big Sisters in Delaware for 23 years, and my mentor, who's now my business partner, was on the board there also. And I met him, and I knew this guy was smart. He owned a temporary agency in Delaware called Placers, and I'd go to lunch with him once a year. And finally, towards the end, he had sold his business. He told me, he said, if you ever want to start a company, I'll back you. So I proposed business idea after business idea to him, and he kept turning them down, turning them down, turning them down. And finally I said, how about a garbage company? Because I was working for a garbage company. He said, okay, I'm in. And it's pretty powerful when a guy hands you a check for $250,000 on a handshake, says, go get started, have fun. So it's pretty neat. You find the right person, you can do it. Needless to say, we sold that business 12 years later, and I'm 52 years old now, and I don't have to work. It's really a neat feeling to do that. And I don't want to make it sound like it's all about the money. It's not. But obviously when you take a big risk, you want to see a reward. To put everything you own on the line, to go home and have your wife sign bank papers once a year that say you're now $4 million in debt, the next year you're $5 million in debt, the next year you're $6 million in debt. It's not an easy conversation to have. So you need to have a support structure to deal with that. The key thing I can tell you is have solid life skills. you have to be driven, you have to be able to lead people, motivated. You have to want to learn. You never stop learning when you're an entrepreneur. You need to talk to other people and learn from them. And you need to share what you learn to your employees especially and teach them. You know, have a basic understanding of financial things, be a good communicator, be very responsible and be very fair. You know, treat people like you want to be treated and really understand your weaknesses. You can't, there's no way in hell you're going to understand every aspect of your business. You can't. So like for me, my weakness was I didn't know how to fix a truck. I couldn't change the brakes, change the oil. So I made sure I hired top-notch mechanics and had a great shop manager because it's a very expensive part of the business. But you do that, and the point is you're still going to manage that person. You're still going to make the final decision maybe for your company, but you're going to get a lot of good input from that individual, and they're going to make part of your team. And without a team, you can't do it. To be an entrepreneur, I can tell you, to build it to where you want it to go, you need to take risk. And remember, risk is great. Risk is good. Okay, risk is what you do it for. That's really what it's all about. Don't let people say risk is bad. Okay, yeah, risk is bad if you're in the stock market in your portfolio, but that's your decision. Obviously, the higher risk, the higher the reward you hope to receive. And yes, it can go the wrong way. It's not all success stories, but the logic is you make that decision, but don't just assume that risk is bad. You know, risk is what a lot of people won't do, and it usually works out for the good if you put the time and effort into it before you make that decision. And just to give you an example, let's say you just don't want to take the risk and you end up in a nice middle manager job at a company and you're thinking, this is great. I don't have risk. Life is good. But let me tell you something, middle management is death. It is so bad. You're getting squeezed from the top. You're getting pressure from the bottom, people are unhappy, and there you are in the middle trying to balance all that aggravation. If you look at most people that you know that aren't entrepreneurs, middle management is usually where their career has stalled or died because they either couldn't cut it or they gave up and just became part of the corporate. So just remember that as you're out there learning and you go, that is a very, very tough job to be in. And you're going to have middle management even in your own companies. But the point is, you have to understand that. If you do, you're going to relate to it better when you have those people working for you. The stress that they're under, because they need to, you know, they're trying to keep you happy, and they've got employees underneath. So it's a very important balance. Key thing to think about is when you become an entrepreneur, do you want to be on your own or partner? I have partners in just about every business venture I have, and I enjoy it. Most of my deals where I'm the partner, if I'm the operating partner, I have majority ownership, and my partner is usually more financial and silent. Now the good news is I get along with my partner to the point where we talk all the time. We share each other's ideas, thoughts, and it's just great. We have a really good deal going, but think that through as you go. But whatever you do, put it in writing. You just need to run it like you would your business. Protect yourself and protect your partner and your family. Like I said, when I came back to Delaware from Jersey, I worked for this guy, Tom Harvey, who had a trash company, and it's just amazing. What you can learn working for a small business is great. So when you're out there doing your job search and you're looking and you've got all these openings and opportunities at these large companies, expand your job search if you can, because if you can get into a small business, you're going to learn so much more, so much quicker. Because when you're in a small business, you're going to be required to do things that you're not required to do at a large company. And it's a great experience. You know, when I went to work for Tom, you know, we were running 26 trucks. You know, 11 years later, we're running 120 trucks. And it's just an amazing experience to grow a company that quick in 10 years. And then to see him sell and retire. And then I was fortunate enough to leave there and go do that on my own. And again, I talked about college in the beginning. Don't get hung up on it. It's important to do. College is about growing up. It's teaching you more than what you're doing in the classroom. It is about social skills, interaction, things like that. But don't hold it against someone if they don't have that college degree when you're out there. My partner has 1 semester of college, and he's done extremely well for himself. It just wasn't for him. For me, it helped me grow up. You know, it was a really good experience for me. I enjoyed it a lot. And then one thing I learned is that, you know, if you work hard, you can play hard. And that's a lot of fun. You can really appreciate it a lot more. Skill sets that I really feel are important. The first one is problem solving, and also can be known as like being a change maker. The key thing with this is, it's one thing to know you have a problem. Okay, let's deal with it. Another thing is to solve it, but you need to communicate that to your employees. Problems don't solve themselves. Just because you figured it out, now you've got to go get these 10 people to actually do what you want them to do to correct the problem. That is very hard. That's the hard part of solving a problem. The hard part's not figuring out the answer. The hard part is implementing that answer and having them implement it the way you want. And then, of course, the biggest twist is halfway through the implementation, you realize you were wrong and you have to change course and do it the right way. So you really need to have that skill. I'll give you an example. It's one thing to deal with banks and accountants, but to go deal with a bonding agency is brutal. I had my business and we were doing great and we picked up a new contract and we needed payment bonds and performance bonds. Well, I just thought, go out and get them. That's not the case. Getting bonded is absolutely brutal. We offered over $2 million in collateral for a $1.5 million bond. It was all real estate. And they said, no, thank you. We're not in the real estate business. We're in the bonding business. We don't care about your real estate. I was like, wow, okay. So needless to say, you learn a lot. And then you go back to your bank. And long story short, we had to put up a letter of credit from the bank to back up the bond, etc. But eye-opening experience. You think you're doing great, and somebody comes along and says, nope, guess what? You're starting from square one. We don't know you. We don't care what you've done. These are the rules, and you're going to play by our rules. So you need to be prepared for that, and you have to work through things like that. And also remember, when you're into a problem-solving situation, the problem's usually deeper than it looks. So you may think, okay, I can solve it. It affects these two departments. Nah, it's not the case. It also is going to affect this department over here, this individual over here, and it's really going to offend this one person who originally thought that was their idea and now it's not. So you need to be aware of those things. It's amazing how everything is so interconnected in the business world. And the more you're aware of that, the more you're going to be able to deal with that ahead of time. Because if you can anticipate those things, like the saying now is, customer service is expected. Customer service, if you don't offer it, that's a joke. You're not even going to survive a day. But now, because the customer walks in the door knowing it, you need to anticipate what the customer wants. If you can do that, you have a shot at really being ahead of your competition. Without that, I'm sorry, it's not going to work. Team building. I can tell you, team building is harder than growing your business, okay? It is harder than going out and getting customers. Finding good people that you trust and they're going to work with you, you need to put a lot of time and effort into that. That is so critical to what you're going to do. For me, like I said, my weaknesses were computer skills, sales, mechanical, and financial. So I hired a very good accountant. I never had an accountant on staff. I always used an outside accountant. We did preliminary books inside and then gave it to him outside. Had a great shop, I type with 2 fingers still. I don't know how to, I can't do a PowerPoint or an Excel spreadsheet, okay? Just never could do it. And sales, you can sell because you have to when you're an entrepreneur, because you have that passion and you believe in your product and your company. But I knew I couldn't be the sales manager of my company. So I started to sell and then I hired some. But the bottom line is, you need to admit these facts up front. If you do, you have a much better shot because you're going to put your time and energy where you're good. And your employees will recognize that, and they will appreciate it, and they will respect the fact that you are deferring to someone else who has that experience. Because if you try to do it all, they know when you mess up. And the key is you want to create an environment where they're open to tell you that, but also help you correct the mistake you made. And your team, if you build a good team, they will do that. If they don't, it just limits your chances of survival. You also need an external team. So you need money, whether it's personal or you go to the bank. You need to really build a relationship with these people. For us, it was very interesting. We had a very high growth company. So when we met with the bank, with the trash company, we explained to them, we don't care about making money. We just wanted to grow. The way you make money in the garbage business is volume and density. We needed a customer base, and we were doing residential. In Delaware, that's house to house. It's not like a lot of other states where the whole town picks up, like City of Newark picks up the whole City of Newark. Most of Delaware is not like that. It's all single subscription. So you can have one hauler, you can have one, all on the same street. So, it's imagine the beginning. I go in one neighborhood and pick up 2 homes, then drive 10 miles, go get another 2. It's very expensive. So to go to the bank every year and borrow more money for a growing business that's losing its shirt big time is a very hard sell. But you need to build a relationship with these people. And we finally learned with our bank what made them click. They kept saying, well, we can't keep doing this. And then we said, well, how about we lay out our exit strategies for you? And in the garbage business, we have some very good options. One, you could stop growing, raise prices, and it turns into a cash cow. Because when you're not growing, you can put your money in your pocket versus putting into more trucks, more equipment. We could slow down growth, pay down some debt, and just kind of mellow it out a little bit and the banks would be happy. Or two, just sell it. Once the banks understood that, never had to go in front of a loan committee again. They were on board, it was good. Every year, my renewal went right through, didn't even show up. Signed the paperwork, good to go. But it took me 3 years to figure that out. 3 years to educate them on what our company was about and what our plan was. I wish I'd known it sooner, because it was brutal the first couple of years to go. These 2 guys, they say no. These 4 guys, they say no. Go to the committee, and finally you get approval. So learn that, and if you have some outside experience with that, it will really help. Decision making. You have to be able to make a decision. Right or wrong, make it. You have to. Make it. Don't be afraid to admit you're wrong, but do it. My personal situation is, I always evaluate a new business or decision as worst case scenario. I say, what's going to happen if this is just a completely dead wrong decision? And once I know that and I'm comfortable with that, you can build up. You can say, okay, well, if that's the case and I screw up and I really make a bad decision here, then okay, I can make this decision to correct it a little bit and we'll take a step here and a step here. But always think things through that way, because it makes life a lot easier. If you can anticipate absolutely dead worst case scenario. So I started my business, the deal I had with my wife was it would never affect our kids. So they still went to the same schools. We did everything we had to do, but the bottom line was, my wife and I, we cut back everything we possibly could, but the kids never saw it. And that was something that was very important to the family and household. And okay, so I knew, worst case scenario, I'm going to be in debt up to here, and I'm going to have nothing left, but I still have, I know I can go out and get a job, and she had a job. We lived off her benefits and everything for the first couple of years. So you just have to work it through. And then it's so much easier to build knowing what worst case scenario is ahead of time versus when worst case scenario hits you a year later and you're like, holy crap, what do I do? Where do I go? I'm like, you need to have that plan in the back of your mind. Hopefully you never have to use it, but at least if you do have to use it, you thought about it already. It's so much easier to deal with. When it comes to competition, you really need to love your competition, okay? One, you need to get to know your competition personally, and you can learn from them. There's plenty of business out there for everybody. So first of all, I can tell you, if you're in a business where there's no competition, that's good in the beginning, but all it means is someone else is going to come along and either do better than you or just help take your market. So you need to be very careful with those scenarios. Either protect yourself as best you can, patents, copyrights, etc., but at the same time, be prepared. It's not going to stay that way. And the banks are going to definitely let you know that. Banks are scared to death of businesses that are in a marketplace with minimal competition, because they know it's going to change, and they don't know how you're going to deal with it. Are you going to be good? Are you going to be better than the competition? Are you a flash in the pan, and 3 years later, you're gone? Example, Theater Extreme. I don't know if you remember them. They're on Main Street in Newark. They were one of the first companies to come out and sell the home screen projection TV for your house. Doing great. Actually became a penny stock, went out there. Next thing you know, Best Buy, all of them are selling them. Guess what? Gone. See ya. Couldn't keep up. So you just really need to be careful of that. A way to compete also is, after you know your competition, is educate your customer. Don't be afraid to tell them how you make money. Tell the customer how you make your decision, why you made your decision. They will learn so much from you that they're going to go tell all their employees, use him as a vendor. Use that company because I trust them. And you don't have to show them your books. But if you can explain to them, like in garbage. Garbage is a very unique business. We charge you by volume to pick up your trash. We get rid of it by weight. So it's a guessing game. I'm guessing that you have so many pounds per yard or pounds per a half yard in your container. I'm paying by the ton to get rid of it. So when you start educating a customer on that, they'll understand why a restaurant is going to pay $900 a month for the same size can. A card shop is going to pay $150 a month because it's so heavy. Okay, but there's details like that. When you get into telling them about regulations and why are you open, it's snowing because the landfill's open. We have to, okay? It's a health code. They don't want garbage to sit. So if the landfill's open, we have to run. Yeah, we can make a safe decision if the roads are bad, but that's very rare that that happens. But don't just say, oh, I'm sorry, we're closed today, to a customer. Explain to them. Tell them why. It is amazing. When you take a customer step by step through your decision-making process, they'll respect you for it. Yes, some of them may go tell your competition, but I can tell you in the long run, you're going to win. They really appreciate that. Communication, don't be afraid to ask. Ask for a sale, ask for a loan, ask for a better deal from a vendor, ask an employee to help out after hours. When you ask somebody something, they appreciate it. Yes, it's a burden. They may not have time, but I can tell you, overall, people like the attention, they like to share, and more importantly, you may learn something really good. Example, I went through, when I had my trash company, we were about at the 30 employee, 40 employee mark, and I could just tell something wasn't right. And I sat down and I interviewed every person, and I said, tell me 3 great things about the company, 3 bad things. And sure enough, when it was all said and done, I had to fire my right-hand man. Turns out he was just destroying the company. And I didn't know it. I was blind to it. But you know, it took me 6 months to get to that point, but I figured it out, and it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. But again, if I didn't ask, I would have never known. They would have kept coming to work, doing their job, but I couldn't figure out what the problem was, and then they brought it to my attention. So you always want to ask. And the key thing is, obviously, once you ask and get answers, you do need to do something with it. Just don't keep it to yourself. That doesn't work. Time management. One of the most important things I learned is every day do something for the future. Just don't spend your day busting butt, scheduled full of meetings and phone calls. You need to make sure on your calendar throughout your day that you do something for tomorrow, for next week, for next month. Every day you need to do that, because if you don't, you're going to get lost. You need to always be thinking, what's down the road? You know, whether it's scheduling a meeting, you know, making an appointment, working on a project that you know is going to take 5 months, doing 20 minutes of work on it. Always do that. Don't get hung up on, you know, oh, I'm just too swamped today. That's bull, okay? When I call these people and they tell me they can't even return a phone call for 2 days and their voicemail box is full, that's just bad time management. I don't care how busy you are, what large company you're a CEO of, that's horseshit, okay? It's just bad business. That's a person that's too full of themselves to deal with you. Your problems don't count. That's somebody you don't want to deal with. You need to respond to people and always schedule some open time in your day. Don't schedule a day from 8 to 5 every half hour, every hour. You need to leave time for the unexpected. A simple example is in the garbage business, the trucks had to be dumped every day. And my guys were like, well, why? It's only half full. And I said, what if you're out tomorrow? What if you're out and the guy that comes in doesn't check the truck right and doesn't know it's half full, and he goes out on a route that requires an empty truck? Now, all of a sudden, middle of the day, truck is loaded, screws up productivity, customer service goes downhill. You don't know what's going to happen the next day. So always, one, do what you scheduled yourself to do, but at the same time, leave some open time in that schedule. When you can react to the unexpected quicker than your competition, there's an advantage, just like that. And guess what? If nothing else comes up and you have that open time, use it for yourself. Go get ice cream, you know? Just sit in your office and read a book for 20 minutes. Mess around on the computer, on the internet. The point is, you have that flexibility. That's what you're doing. Use that time for yourself. These schedules that people have are just absolutely ridiculous. I'm like, wow, how do you do that? I don't want to go to work and have a schedule like that every day. In conclusion, the most important thing is, you know, enjoy what you do. If it's not fun and it becomes a burden to you, your employees are going to know it, and they're not going to want to work for you. Because if you're not enjoying it, they're not going to enjoy it. It'll show sooner or later. It may take a year or 2 years, but you really need to enjoy that. I mean, that's why I sold the trash company. I reached a point, I just couldn't do it anymore. We were getting ready to start recycling. It was going to be another $4 million investment. And I said, yeah, I don't want it. So yeah, you make the decision, but you do it. Because if you try to kid yourself, other people are going to know. Don't ever think that they don't notice. They know what's going on. And you know, if you're not sure, ask your employees what they would do if they owned it. You'll be surprised on the responses you get. Very simple formula. Good, happy employees leads to happy customers, and it leads to profit, straight up. You know, that's why the large companies, corporate America, they're always thinking of the shareholder. I got to drive the price, got to keep New York Stock Exchange happy. It's great. It leads to very poor decision making a lot of times. The customer and the employee take a beating. Yeah, they're going to see earnings go up, and they're going to see the stock go up, and then they'll hire more people, and then they'll crash and burn. It's a little cycle they do. But the point is, if you want to live through that, great, because as long as you catch the cycle right, you're good. But I can just tell you that if you keep it simple, and some people say happy customer leads to happy employee. You can go both ways. But I really strongly believe if you take care of your employees, that's a great starting point. Invest in your employees. You know, don't chintz on things. You know, decent furniture, hardware, software. These people, that's their work environment. That's where they are 8 to 10 hours a day. Give them something nice. I mean, I understand in the beginning money's tight. Okay, I get it. But we built a new office building in our 7th year of the trash company, and I made sure that we put some decent furniture, a decent break room, you know, better software, computers, phone system. You need to do that. That is a wise investment. Even if it doesn't, your customer never sees it, your customer will, because the person sitting at that desk when they answer the phone is going to be happier. And it'll be portrayed in the tone of their voice. And that is really critical. When it comes to branding, remember, your customers they relate to your employees and your service and your product. Branding is great, and image and all that, and you're going to get there. But in the beginning, no one's buying your product or brand. Okay, it's like, do you go shop and buy a Johnson & Johnson product because of their corporate mission statement? No, nobody knows what it is. Okay, they have to have one for this strategic plan to keep everybody happy. But realistically, that's a joke. You know, you're buying their product because you like it, or your friend told you it's a really good product, etc. Don't forget that. I mean, in our company, our drivers were our link to our customer, and then the customer service reps on the phone. That was our true link. So those drivers, we taught them, smile when you see a customer, wave, stop, say hello, get out, ask them if they need anything extra. That goes so far. And again, when you're doing this, don't forget your employees can be your customers. Okay, not just people outside your business, but your employees are customers too. Okay, you know, like my truck shop, they were repairing trucks for the drivers. So the drivers were customers of the truck shop. And getting a mechanic to understand that is very hard. Mechanics are very bullheaded and proud people, and hardworking guys, don't get me wrong. But I can tell you, to get them to understand that they were a customer, they were providing service to a customer, the drivers. All they thought drivers were idiots because all drivers do is break trucks. But what I'm getting at is they have to understand that's an integral part of the success of the company. Make sure you admit your mistakes. Here's an example. We went 2 or 3 years without billing, I don't know, let's say we didn't bill like 25 customers. And it equated to about $8,000 or $9,000 in lost billing. So what we did was, we sent all those customers a letter saying effective April 1st, we're going to start billing you. It was our mistake. We apologize. Thank you for being a customer. If you'd like to pay us for that money, here's the amount you owe. Please make your check out to Big Brothers Big Sisters of Delaware. Don't make it to us. We've already lived without it for 2 years. We don't need it. And 85% of those people sent a check into Big Brothers Big Sisters, which was great. So I got to give them $6,000. You know, so make an opportunity out of a mistake. I got some great PR out of it. I guarantee you those people told their neighbors about it. Hey, I got a free trash service, and then I decided to pay, but it went to a charity. So they got a tax write-off, but we didn't look like, hey, we need the money. And listen, we needed the money, but I needed the reputation, and I needed the long-term success of the company more importantly. And most importantly, keep it in perspective. If you fail, it's not that big a deal, okay? My first business, we bought it for $175,000. We had a retail store, my wife and I. 5 years later, I sold it for $75,000. Not exactly a financial success, but I learned a lot. I learned about cash flow. I learned how to negotiate a commercial lease with a landlord. You know, I hated retail. Okay, I'm just saying. But I learned a lot. It was like going to school. And let me tell you something. When you succeed, you know, it's a great feeling. The way to learn these life skills that I talked about is go on Google and just Google, you know, skill sets of great entrepreneurs and read about that. Talk to as many entrepreneurs as you can. You're not going to get that in the classroom. You're not going to get that in the books. The articles online are a little better, but you spend time doing that, you're going to really catch on to how these people think and operate. An example is, you're not going to close a deal via text, via email. You need to be able to talk face-to-face with people. Don't forget that. My son graduated Delaware a year ago. He's at Citibank, did his summer internship, and he texts me and he's like, that's my last day, and I sent everybody an email saying thank you very much. I said, no. I said, any asshole can send an email, okay? I said, you get out of your desk, you walk down the hall, and you shake everybody's hand that you met this summer, and you put your face in front of them and say thank you, and say your name again, and you know, how many people didn't do that? And it didn't cost him a dime. It took 15 minutes of his day, but it makes a difference. You need to, no matter what, you're going to have face-to-face dealings. And I'm telling you, phone conversations are critical. You can tell so much from the tone of someone's voice. It is amazing. It helps negotiating so much. I mean, you have no idea. Texting, and people can hide behind a computer screen. When you hear that voice on the phone or see them in person, you have the advantage. especially if you initiate the conversation. Don't wait for them to call you. You initiate it. You already have them at the disadvantage. They've already, oh crap, I got to talk to this person. And that's what you want. You want them. So just don't be afraid to do that. It's very critical. You know, I think just enjoy it. I mean, common sense goes a long way. I'm sure, like, we used to have a joke here when we went to Delaware. If you went to the engineering building, let's say all the doors you have to push to open, if you put a pull on them, they'd all stay inside and starve to death, okay? But the logic behind that story is the very structured world that they are in, okay? They have to. They have, you know, those laws of physics and science. I mean, okay, you understand? That's part of what they do. But what I'm getting at is take that, you have to be outside of that. You have to think outside of that box. And what they're studying and focusing on, they don't have to. It's not part of the job. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to do that. You've got to basically set your own path. But the key is get some help to do it, because it makes it a lot easier and I think a lot more fun. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing it yourself, but don't be afraid to ask. So what? Somebody says no, someone says you're crazy. Okay, just go to the next person. Sooner or later you'll find somebody who wants to help.